Welcome back to another episode of Coffee Chat Live for MSPs, where we sometimes drink coffee, some of us drink tea, but we always talk. And sometimes we talk about MSP stuff, and sometimes we just banter back and forth, but that's okay. Caitlin, it's a nice cup you got there. Did you make that in like a make your own cup?
No, it's from Bennington Potters. I think they're based out of Vermont.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Started recently collecting their stuff during COVID.
And what do you have in your cup? Drinking coffee today?
Coffee, Dunkin' Donuts, dark roast, Keurig.
There you go.
Yes.
I like it. I love it. Today, I'm really excited to have Caitlin on because Axion is planning some big stuff. Got a event coming up. Is that right?
We do at the end of October 26th.
Oh, how is this your first time planning a digital event, or is this something that you've done before?
This is our second. We actually had our first digital event last fall, and so this is our second time doing it.
How's it been doing like digital events versus like planning in-person stuff like you may have done in the past?
Oh boy. It's harder on some levels and it's also easier on some levels. So, when you have an in-person event, there's just a whole other layer of logistics that you have to work through in terms of, getting people to a location and, booking the location and food and beverage and, all of those things. When it's a virtual event, it's a little bit easier. You just have to make sure everyone has, the correct Zoom link or Crowdcast link or those sorts of things. But, then there's multiple time zones that you're dealing with when you're in one geographical location. There's only one time zone. So that's, just a whole nother thing to consider is where people are tuning in from and those sorts of things. So it's definitely different.
You say one's easier or harder, or is it have different challenges for each one?
I think there's different challenges for each one. With virtual, there's the whole component of being virtual. And so everyone has different, internet bandwidths or places that they're tuning in from or connections. And, we use Ring Central internally at Axion. And so lately that's been super glitchy and everyone's been dropping off meetings like crazy. And, it's just, there's a whole multitude of other things that you have to worry about. We still do dress rehearsals with all of our speakers to make sure they know how to log into the software and how to share their screens and how to turn on their microphones and those sorts of things. And it's almost sometimes harder because you're not there in person with them, on their machine coaching them. It's trying to do it, in a virtual setting. So there's just a lot of other logistical things to think about.
One thing I've noticed is like there's the deadlines are much more strict with in-person stuff. So like if you forget to mail something by a certain date, it just won't be there. Like if you forget to order something, or like a virtual event, you can kind of like fix things like the day of and the night before if it goes wrong.
Send a virtual, gift card to someone's email and it is there instantaneously. You don't have to plan for shipping or those sorts of things.
Yeah. The logistics of it is I don't know. It's different because it requires a different skill set and a lot of it's new and a lot of it's changing like every week. But it's easier in some ways like that. So how do you go about like what is it like internally when you're like, we want to plan a giant event? How do you set yourself up to do that?
Oh, that's a good question. So it's nice that this is our second year doing it because I have last year's experiences to fall back on. So there's definitely things that we're doing differently and things that we're like, okay, this is what worked last year. But in terms of actually planning, internally, I have kind of taken the lead with my team on that. So planned out, the event time, logistics, how we want it to run, get internal buy-in from our marketing leader, make sure the marketing team's on board. We kind of divvy up the planning and responsibilities. And then for us, it's really getting key buy-in from the rest of the company. Axion is a remote company because of COVID, but we've always had a remote workforce prior to that. So making sure that, all the different departments, support, sales, R&D, everything is aware of this event. And so really announcing it to the company. We have all hands meetings every other week. And so last week we launched our internal event into the company, letting them know this is taking place, like how they can promote it, talking points, what's happening. And then really helping our sales team, the people who are on the phone interacting with their partners daily too, making sure they are aware of what's taking place and, how they can help drive traffic to our event and those sorts of things.
The communication aspect is like the biggest thing, like figuring out how to get it out.
Overly communicate. Yes. And so we are actually, the event is on October 26th. We're launching the promotion for it next week. But just overly communicating in the next 4 weeks, with everyone internally. Okay, now this is 3 weeks away. This is 2 weeks away. These are the things you can do. Let's all change our email signatures. We're making Zoom backgrounds for everyone to use. And so, people respond to things different ways. Some people read their emails thoroughly. Some people don't. Some people like bulleted points. Some people like paragraphs. Some people like to be told every week. And so just making sure that you hit all of those different aspects of communication to, make sure everyone understands at some level what's happening and what their role in it is too.
And Jimmy, based off of what Caitlin said, like how similar is her process to the one that you came up with for Rebound?
Well, I have a feeling Caitlin is a lot more organized than me. And Jared's laughing because he knows that. Very similar though, but I like challenges. So sometimes I'll, put off some planning aspects that are key and then have to figure them out in a couple hours before we send something out. But no, very similar. Getting like the hardest part, I think, is just figuring out what the actual schedule and speakers are going to be, like what the actual content is. Cause you can't really do much out. Like you can promote it, you can do all this stuff, but like, that's what everyone wants to know is like, who's going to be speaking at it? What are the sessions going to be like? And that takes so long to figure out and like nail people down and make sure they actually deliver and make sure like that they get in on time. But I would say it's a similar process. I think for us is a little smaller scale because our Rebound events were just Scout. Now that we have a much bigger reach with our, now that we're part of Barracuda, I think that we can do, take some notes from you on that one and do it, bigger. But I think like for me, it was just about finding that the best speaker I could, and it took a while to get Dan Marino. It was lots of chasing down, but that was fun.
And then, so you brought up organization. I want to commend Kaylin for hers. She's our event contact for their upcoming event. And we had a meeting. It was very long, a lot of information. But after the meeting, she sent over the most organized email that I've ever seen. Everything was laid out, perfectly ordered. And that kind of stuff just makes attending an event so much easier. How long did it take you to like master the skill of communication through email?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, I've been, part of the Axians marketing team for 7.5 years. And I started out with events. So it's, 7.5 years of experience and really learning that, like I said, communication, overly communicate, make sure everyone knows, deadlines and those sorts of things. I will say though, every sponsor that we had got all of their deliverables to me by Wednesday, which was the due date. And that has never happened before. So I was like, this is making my life easier that all the sponsors are so, on top of it too. So, usually it's a lot of herding cats and just trying to get as much information from people as you can. So thank you, Jared. I appreciate that. But yes, it's been 7.5 years of a lot of learning on the job learning experience.
It's funny. Like, I know why Jared's asking these questions, because when he first started working with me, he was sort of building out our partner marketing role. And I see John cracking a smile a little bit because I know he's done some work with Jared before. And I made Jared add me. Like the reason I'm not as organized is because I have Jared to be organized. And I made him add me to every single email he sent out, like on planning partner webinars. And then I was just like, forward it back to him, like, here's how, it needs way more of this, way more of this, way more of this. But, now he's very, very good at that. I don't know, John, do you have any comments on that? You've done a webinar with us before.
I would say keeping it short and sweet seems to work well for most people, because as shorter it is, the more likely they're going to read it. A wall of text just doesn't work. Multiple emails with smaller bite-sized amounts of information will much better.
I agree
I think
with that.
using bullet points or lists in the email too just helps so much. Actually outlining it like a Word document and not just, like John said, a wall of text or a huge paragraph. Just makes it so much more simple to the eye.
Bolding or highlighting dates and times too, like key things just to make it stand out. I'm also I'm a huge believer in calendar invites. If it's not on my calendar, it does not exist. And so anytime we book any, person, speaker for a webinar, an event, anything, I'm sending out a calendar invite and getting it, blocking their schedule for it ASAP so that they, it's on everyone's calendars and schedules and they can plan for it. And, our partners are busy people. They're always taking, client meetings or new business development meetings or those sorts of things. And so blocking that time is key. And, everything's dynamic. People are moving quickly and have a lot going on. And so just getting everyone squared away with schedules right away is super helpful. And that's how I coach my team too. I have a few direct reports, and that's like the first thing I tell them. I'm like calendar invites for everything, over calendar everything, so that we are internally, but also like with anyone we work with externally too.
So important. Harold, how are you doing? I see your Zoom background. Where is that? Arizona somewhere?
That's actually Lake Powell in Utah.
I was just there 3 weeks ago.
I just about got a drone taken away from me from that picture. Apparently you're not supposed to fly a drone there.
So when did you take that picture? Because it must have been a couple years ago.
Yeah, that one actually was either 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, because the water level is so much lower now. So I went a couple weeks ago, and it was 80 feet lower than 2 years ago.
Yep. And there's a lot of things that I've never seen. We've been going for over 30 years. So.
Wow. Yeah, I got to do I did the kayak through the lower canyon, and it was about a quarter mile shorter than it previously was because, it hit land so much earlier.
Yeah, we usually take about 10 or 12 kayaks. And so that's one of our favorite activities is to just jump on a kayak and go find stuff.
Yeah. It was, we had to do the schlepping the kayak down 60 feet. So the water level of the lake, for people who are on, the water level has dropped 80 feet in the past 2 years, due to climate change and all that. And so in the 11-year drought or 18-year drought that's happening out there. So there's a boat ramp that looks like 2 years ago, you could just go in and walk your kayak off the boat ramp. But now you have to climb down under all these rocks 60 feet with a kayak, holding it with two people. Yep. So
we put in an antelope, so we're fortunate. We can put all the kayaks. I usually put 4 on my boat. We'll put 2 on another ski boat or surf boat, and then we'll go find the houseboat. But that's how we get them in.
Oh yeah, I saw the houseboats out in the water. Man, I want to go on your trip. Your trip sounds like you guys got it figured out.
It's our family activity for the year. So,
do you live out there, or do you just?
We live up north of Salt Lake City. Actually, I'm from Cuban, so I think 30, 40 miles north of Salt Lake.
Yeah, the funny thing, it was my first time in Lake Powell. The thing that was really getting me was how. You have Arizona time, which doesn't follow daylight savings, which is currently on California. I see people laughing. It's so ridiculous. Currently on California time. Then you have the Navajo reservation, which is in Arizona, which technically, according to cell phones, is on Utah time or whatever, Mountain Standard Time or whatever it is. But according to scheduling, it's on Arizona time. If you book a tour or something, they'll just do it on Arizona time. And then you have Utah, which is borders the town. So your phone just keeps switching what time it is. Or GPS will say it's so far.
Beauty is once you get on the water, there's only two times, daytime and nighttime.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Well, I've successfully totally taken us off track of the meeting, but that's what it's about. Sometimes we talk about, virtual events and staying organized and emails, and sometimes we talk about Lake Powell.
Well, in different time zones, like from planning events, I've learned, I think Ohio has 2 different time zones in the state, and there's some states that have 2 different time zones. And was something I had to learn, when you're planning some like a local lunch and learn or something, and half the states in one time zone and half the states in another. That's important information to know.
Yeah, the funniest is, so this Coffee Chat Live originally started out, focused on with JP and the EMEA team, and it's sort of merged and grown since then. But there's a 14-day period where the North American time zones observe daylight savings and the European time zones don't. So GMT, it's like, what was it, 2 weeks that it was off or out of sync? That one really threw us through a loop.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, we've actually hit our
mark. No more daylight savings time. Just get rid of it.
I know. Well, that's the funny thing too, because I'm like, why is Arizona on a different thing? It's like, oh, they're really just like 1,000 years ahead of everyone, just saying no daylight savings time. Yeah,
I think we have caught or hit the time limit on our quick Coffee Chat Live.
Yeah, we've got to observe our anti-webinar, 15 minutes only. So.
Caitlin,
thank you all for watching. Caitlin, thanks for joining. John,
thanks for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, our pleasure. We're looking forward to the event. How can people, I guess they'll receive info on it next week when it's actually started promoted?
Receive info next week, and I believe we'll be having Charlie Tomeo, potentially our CRO, on Coffee Chat next Friday, and he'll be able to give you more details on how to register.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. And now Jared is the only one who can stop the live stream now. So
I'll sign us off. Thank you, everyone.